What do you get when you mix Sonic the Hedgehog with an anime? When you mix the fanfiction-filled, original character-saturated, My Little Pony crossover fanart creating, strange character-shipping obsessed fandom of Sonic the Hedgehog with the cosplaying, body pillow-loving, katana-collecting, anime-obsessed weeaboos. You get Sonic X, the coolest adaptation of Sonic the Hedgehog since Sonic Schoolhouse, the educational video game for PC. Now, I already spoke a ton about the Sonic fandom in this video and how it is very multi-sided, and I pretty much have no opinion whatsoever on the anime fandom, so please, don't kill me. Sonic X is a 2003 Japanese Sonic cartoon that was given English dubs and aired in the US on the 4Kids network. Most people have pretty mixed opinions on this show, some saying it's the best Sonic cartoon, some saying it's the worst. The most common opinion that I've seen from fans and non-fans of this show, however, is that the Japanese version is much better than the English version. According to the good folks at SonicStadium.org, the English version had tons of things cut from the Japanese. Certain aspects such as side characters being killed off. Somewhat heavy language apparently says this at some point, and I actually kind of want to hear that. And some character traits were all cut when the show was dubbed. Most people even say that the jokes are funnier, the pacing is better, the music is more epic, and the voice acting, it was all just much better in the Japanese version. I made a video on the show quite a while ago, and for the most part probably 20 to 30% of the comments were something like, "Have you seen the Japanese version? It's uncut. Are you seriously watching the English version? Watch the Japanese!" Surprisingly, this show is actually really good in the Japanese version. Now, as someone who grew up with and loved this show, would I like to rewatch it in a much higher quality, just in a different language? I honestly don't care. As someone who loves this show as a guilty pleasure, and as something that introduced me to the Sonic franchise, I really don't understand why I'd want to watch the whole thing over in Japanese, for a few reasons. One, I like this show for a lot of reasons, but surprisingly enough, part of it is the really corny voice acting and how funny it can get.
Sonic! Are you out there, Sonic? Hey, Sonic!
Shut up!
Two, I personally don't think that I want to see an innocent show about innocent characters swearing and hinting at dirty jokes. Now, I'm not saying that swearing in adult humor just really triggers me. Oh, I'm just too innocent for those things. Sonic X Japan is of the devil. No, I don't have gripe with any of those things on their own, but as someone who watched Sonic X and grew to love it as a kid's show, I really don't want my memories of it being changed into something else, something darker and more adult. To me, it's a kid's show, and I wouldn't want it any other way. 3, I just don't get why people would rather have a show you can watch in English in Japanese. When I watch a show, I don't want to have to read what the characters are saying. In that case, I can just read a book, or even more similar, I can read the comics, which I actually really enjoy. The whole time I'll just be thinking, why can't I have someone read this to me? Oh wait, I can, there's an English version. How dare you? If I could move from this spot and actually watch things, I'd be watching Japanese anime right now. Oh, right. To each his own. Are you happy? So I personally prefer to remember Sonic X as the cheesy English dub that we all know and love. Or hate. But in the end, is it really that bad? And why do I even like it to begin with? Let's dive into some actual episodes and find out. Just to grab an idea of what this series is, let's skim over Episode 1, Chaos Control, which will give us an idea of the plot. This episode starts with Eggman holding Cream and Cheese hostage. Now, don't get the impression that they are both named after food. They are actually named after the style of humor that this show has. Cheesy. I guess you could say that about my humor after making that joke. Anyway, Eggman has them held hostage in his base that I think is called Chaos Control, and it holds chaos, maybe? Or it controls chaos? I really don't know.
Chaos!
Oh, and Rouge is there. Not sure why, she just is. One of Eggman's robots accidentally shoots something important while Sonic is trying to save Cream and Cheese, and makes this happen, which I guess transports them all to another dimension, but not before Knuckles can make a witty pun.
What is that?
It used to be Chaos Control.
Always the jokester!
Oh, and we get a glimpse of Big the Cat. I didn't know this was going to be a horror show. Sonic wakes up in a city filled with humans, and this lady. And after some antics with the police, he eventually comes across this kid named Chris. That's the plot of the first episode, and what have we learned so far? This show takes place in a world like ours. Chris exists for pretty much no reason, and don't do drugs or you'll end up like this lady. So yes, the main premise of this show is that Sonic and his pals and Chris have to live in a world like ours and have to get back home. It's actually a pretty cool idea in my opinion. Putting Sonic and his pals in a world like ours gives a lot of cool scenarios and plots. We get Sonic having to deal with fame, becoming the town's superhero. There's some episodes where the government actually hires them for special missions, and that actually all sounds really fun and entertaining to watch. But there's a slight rust patch on this cool idea that slowly grows into a big rusty hole. That was a really weird analogy. Meet Chris, some random kid who saved Sonic from drowning and all of a sudden has to be in every single episode. Sonic and his pals decide to stay at this kid's home for whatever reason, and let's just say it's really unnecessary. There's almost no reason that they should stay with this kid besides to learn about the world and what's going on. Other than that, Chris is... well, he's pretty much useless. He gets in the way a lot. He whines a lot, and he just overall seems to make things very difficult for Sonic and his pals. A lot. Sure, he has his shining moments, but I honestly didn't care because I never liked him to begin with. Now, he does have a somewhat higher purpose, I guess. One of the main plots in the series is that Chris's parents are never around. His dad is the head of a toy brand, and his mom is a famous actor. To explain this a bit more, I'm going to have to add a bit of a spoiler warning. Now, this isn't a huge spoiler, it just kind of explains how this whole subplot with Chris and his parents goes. Kind of the ending to Season 2, so if you want everything to be a surprise, go ahead and skip to the point appearing on the screen now. Note to self, put time on the screen that it's going to be. Great job, Peter. In the end of Season 2, Sonic and his pals, and Chris, finally find a way to send everyone back home, but as they're about to leave, Chris runs away with Sonic because he doesn't want them to go. Since his parents were never around, he latched onto Sonic through the series. Sonic makes no attempt to resist, eventually making Chris realize that this won't make him happy, and he eventually admits to his parents that he just wants them to be there for him. Honestly, this is pretty smart. I mean, it dives into Chris's character, and the way that Sonic handles the situation is also smart and amusing. I found this was the one time that I was actually interested in Chris's story, and one of the few times that this show slows down and focuses more on the emotion. It is a very noisy, non-stop show most of the time, which of course as a kid I totally loved. What sucks about this is that, like I said, I don't like Chris, and neither did most people. He's not really made into a likable character throughout the series, and for me, he just distracted the show from focusing more on Sonic and his pals, which is what I wanted to see. As a result, this climax of Season 2 was less emotional than it could have been. Another big problem with this plot is that it feels so unfitting. Even if it is done well, this is still a Sonic cartoon. It just doesn't feel like we should be putting this much focus into some random kid and his parent issues. Either way, Chris is really the only big thing in Sonic X that I had an issue with, and even though he's constantly there, just whining all the time, it didn't really bother me too much from enjoying this show. Yes, I enjoyed this show immensely, but what is it about the show that I enjoyed? For that, we're going to look at one of my favorite episodes and find out. Or find out that I'm tasteless, I guess that's possible.
This has to be just about the smoothest flight I've ever been on.
Who are you talking to, Tails?
Stop! Stop!
Yeah, just stand in front of it, dude. I'm sure you'll stop and save your beautiful field from that jet just zipping towards you 100 miles an hour. I'm sure that would definitely save it.
I saw it laying next to the dumpster a couple of nights ago.
So I just figured I'd stuff it in my pocket, keep it there for a few nights. Just a big stick-it emerald sticking out of my pocket. It definitely wouldn't obstruct anything I do.
Which makes me happy.
It appears to be coming from the baseball stadium.
Fascinating.
Fascinating. Ooh. Mike Pollock is great. Gotta go faster, faster. Faster. Sonic X. Boom, 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 fireworks.
We both want those emeralds, but why not be good sports about it? And meet me over at the Diamond Stadium.
Okay, so here's what I love about Eggman. He could have just gone and taken those emeralds, but he said, no, let's have an entertaining episode where everybody plays baseball for no reason whatsoever. It's totally pointless, it makes absolutely no sense, but hey, it'll be entertaining. Thanks, Eggman.
This friendly game of baseball sounds like a great idea to me.
Ah, so you're Chuck, are you? Well, it's a great pleasure to finally meet you.
Yes, I've heard a lot about Chuck.
1, 2, 1, 2. Does he have to be on our team?
A legitimately funny joke, alright? See, Sonic X has those.
Oh no, what if I let the whole team down?
Oh my gosh, Chris, stop being so Chrissy.
That's easy for you to say.
Oh my gosh, just stop.
The game was, of course, the last to be played here at the stadium. Could that be?
It's that guy.
but I think we've learned an important lesson about working together.
I actually learned nothing. So here's what I like about Sonic X. The cosmetics. That's pretty much the best way of describing it. From a critical standpoint, this show is just kind of meh for me, but this show is just so appealing. The anime is one of the best styles that I've seen the Sonic series take. It kind of moved into the Game Boy Advance games as well. Some of the art in the manuals was kind of that same anime style. It just seems so fitting and cool. The voice acting wasn't great, but growing up with these 4 kids voice actors makes me feel like those are the characters' voices. That was what they're meant to sound like. It's just kind of ingrained into my brain now. Even though new voice actors might be a little bit better, it's not the same. The plot of a Sonic in a human world is actually super entertaining to me. Not like in the games where it's just Sonic versus Eggman. In Sonic X we got casual social episodes and more relatable things that took place in the real world. The show even had Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 as the stories for some of the episodes, so since I grew up with those 2 games as well, I felt very at home watching this show. And yeah, I know everything else is pretty corny and maybe not that well done sometimes, but I have such nostalgia for it at this point. So I've got things I love about the show and things that I can enjoy laughing at. It overall makes the show completely enjoyable for me. Above all, I just like seeing Sonic and his friends in a casual episode like we saw in No Fair Ball. Episodes like that and Cruise Blues were what I remember liking the most, because it just had Sonic and his pals being themselves. And just funny dialogue and development. That is what I liked about Sonic X. So at this point, what more is there to talk about? We've looked at the good, the bad, the Chris. What else is there? Season 3. Season 3, aka the Metarex Saga. It's very odd, to me, personally. It feels like a whole different series altogether. To be honest, I still watched and enjoyed it, but the Metarex Saga was kind of not what I expected to see from Sonic X. It takes place after Sonic and his pals got back from the human world, back into the Green Hills or Mobius or whatever canon they're going with for this one. At this point, I was excited. Chris was gone, and at this point I was getting more in the mood to have some more classic Sonic versus Eggman style. But, and this is a big but, Chris came back. Why? Just, no. In the first episode, they show Chris and his friends many years later, and I mean, that could be fine. Chris won't whine all the time. As he's older, his parent issues are over, and maybe he'll be more competent. Nope, in a crazy coincidence, he transports himself to Sonic's world and ends up the same age as he was back when they knew him. Hooray! Oh, the irony. It makes for such, so likable. I mean, they couldn't have him be older. All the people who just loved Chris, they wouldn't have the same character. It just wouldn't be Chris anymore. It wouldn't make the show less like with the issues that Season 1 and 2 had, which is exactly what...
Hey, Sonic!
Now, thankfully, Chris is downplayed a lot, and yeah, he is done with his parent issues. But they still give him this one plot where he feels useless since he can't do much at all. Which isn't that far from the truth. I'm sorry, Chris, I'm really bashing on you here. Anyway, he is downplayed, like I said, so he's overall not much of an issue. I mean, he's just kind of there. Now, the plot itself is where things got a little bit boring for me. Sonic and his friends find this girl named Cosmo. If I recall correctly, and it's been a while since I saw the show, her race was wiped out by aliens called the Metarex, and now they're coming to destroy Sonic's world and pretty much the entire universe. I'm not sure why. Sonic and his friends... and Chris build a giant spaceship and go into space to stop them. This actually does sound cool in concept, and maybe it's just me being a little more critical by the time that I got to this season, but I overall was kind of bored for maybe half of the episodes. On one hand, you have this new character, Cosmo, who, although she has extremely little personality besides being the damsel in distress, Tails ends up growing attached to her, which makes for a really emotional climax that I won't spoil for you, don't worry. And that also gives Tails a lot more attention and development, which I liked. He was one of my favorite characters in this show when I was a kid. There were some pretty funny episodes about the two of them as well, like one with Team Chaotix trying to play matchmaker with them. It was corny, yeah, but it was really entertaining. On the other hand, almost every other episode that wasn't that kind of plot was very similar. Go to a planet, fight a few Metarex, fight a big boss Metarex guy, the end. That was pretty much the plot for every episode. Now, there were a few episodes that were kinda cool, and there was also this subplot where Shadow's trying to kill Cosmo, which was actually genuinely creepy and kept me on my toes. And again, the season finale was really emotional. That's coming from someone who can get past the fact that Tails sounds like an 8-year-old girl, but still.
The grass is practically glowing!
So you can see how this season was not what I expected. New scenario, new plot, kinda new feel with the darker, more violent episodes. I'd say overall, the couple episodes that I did like were enough to make me not dislike this season altogether. It's definitely not my favorite, but it's okay. And that was it for Sonic X anyway. There have been so many rumors about a Season 4 that was supposed to air, but honestly, I don't think that's true. And I think that ending on the Metarex Saga was probably a good idea. Sonic X to me was about Sonic and his pals, and Chris living in a human world, and that's what I liked about it as a kid. I wouldn't mind if they just stopped at Season 2 and maybe made the Metarex a different series altogether. I think if we would have continued past the Metarex Saga, the series would have crashed and burned. Much like the 4Kids Company, which went bankrupt after a lawsuit a few years later. That's really not funny, I apologize for that. So Sonic X is pretty much a guilty pleasure. It has so many issues, and from a critical standpoint, it's not that great a cartoon, but it's just so cool. This show is what brought me into the Sonic fandom. As a kid, I loved the action, the adventure, seeing all my favorite characters in nice-looking anime. Yes, don't even tell me it's not anime, okay? Anime is just Japanese animation. This is anime by definition, so don't tell me it's not. And of course, Sonic and his friends being superheroes in a world pretty similar to mine. Is it for everyone? No. Heck, even most people who watch the Japanese version would say it's really not that great a show. But it's just one of those cartoons that it's hard to praise, but so many people can't help but love anyway. I love it for its appeal, its hilarious voice acting, the way it introduced me into the franchise, and when you have a show that can be so flawed and yet so darn cool at the same time, you don't really need that much of a reason to love it. Oh, and that theme song, Gotta Go Fast, that was dope. Cheesy or not, don't let anybody tell you that sucked, because that was amazing, alright? That got my adrenaline going. Okay, we're done.
Now hold on, you still haven't watched it in Japanese.
Again, I honestly don't care.
Why don't you want to watch it? You're racist? You don't like Japanese Sonics?
Okay, fine.
Later.
So?
It's just Sonic X. In Japanese, I don't get it.
Shut up, it's so much better. All the things that people have said are true. The maturity, the dialogue, it's a sheer masterpiece.
Wait, you never went to school. How can you read any of this?
Yeah, that is a good point.
Hey, what is up guys? Peter here. Thanks a ton for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, feel free to give it a like to let me know. I upload videos like this almost every day, so go ahead and subscribe if you're into that kind of a thing. If you want to contact me directly or stay up to date with upcoming videos, check out my social medias. The links to those are in the description. Now I leave you with this music from DJ Basebox28, who provides most of the music for my videos. You can check him out in the description or by clicking the annotation to the left. Thanks again for watching, and as always, have yourselves a wonderful day.